What is up, guys? This is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm going to be bringing all of you guys my Lunalight deck profile for this April 2016 format. Now, I decided to make Lunalights quite a while back, ever since I think when they were roughly announced, just because I saw the card art, and for me anyway, the card art of an archetype is pretty much one of the biggest selling points an archetype can have for me to pick it up. Just because if the deck looks good, I probably will get it because I really do like my aesthetic cards. And so I did decide to build Lunalights, and I was just kind of heartbroken with how bad the deck was. I won't say that the deck is unplayable, but whoever says this deck can be competitive is kind of fooling themselves, because this deck is not going to be competitive almost whatsoever. But still, though, it's a very fun deck, and I do love fusion summoning, and since it is a fusion deck, I decided, hey, why not? Let's build it. So I did decide to bring this deck for all of you guys today. I did decide to try and stray away from the OTK Lunalight builds, because I personally found that those builds were absolutely terrible and just kind of were like why would you make such a bad deck when you can make this deck a lot better? So that was the whole reason why I tried to make this deck, because I really wanted to also try and test my deck building skills to see if I could make this deck better than almost every other freaking Lunalight deck on YouTube. So yeah, without further ado, we're gonna get right into the deck without me rambling too much. We have 3 copies of the Lunalight Black Sheep, because this is extra copies of Polymerization. She's similar to any Necroz monster from before, where you can simply discard her to search Polymerization to your hand. So that's pretty cool. She essentially gives you 6 copies of Poly in your deck. She also is pretty cool because if you ever do use her for a fusion summon, you can pretty much just grab one of the fusion materials that you used for that fusion summon back to your hand, except herself. So it kind of helps you also make your fusion summons less of a neg for you, and it tries its best to try and make the fusion summon as less hurtful and detrimental on your card economy as possible. So yeah, we have 3 copies of the Lunalight Black Sheep. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Lunalight White Rabbit, because this is going to be your Wolfbark of the deck. She's pretty cool because she's a level 2, and actually so is Black Sheep right here. So if you open a way to get this and the Black Sheep into your hand, you actually can end the field either with a Lunalight Cat Dancer that was made without burning any of your card economy, or you can also just make a free rank 2, which is pretty darn cool because, again, she can summon any Lunalight monster from your grave, including all of the fusion monsters, which is pretty relevant as well, so it can help you get into your bigger Lunalight fusion monsters. And in general, she's just a standard 3 of also, because her effect is also really cool. Moving on to the next Lunalight, we have 3 copies of the Lunalight Blue Cat. Now, this card is pretty bad to draw into. I think the biggest problem with this deck is that this is kind of like a necessary evil. You have to run 3 of this card because it's not terrible, but it's bad to draw simply because it's a really slow card. It doesn't do anything on summon, or it doesn't really help you advance your plays, but it's a very strong defensive card for this deck, as if this card is destroyed in any way, shape, or form, you can special summon another Lunalight monster from your deck, including itself. So, and it's also not once per turn. So this card is basically the you're not gonna die card, where if you can set this card and your opponent doesn't have a way to either banish this card or shuffle it back to deck, you can essentially just keep stalling out the game by constantly summoning blue cats from your deck until it gets to your turn, and that it hopefully just buys you another turn where you can make a comeback. So of course we have 3 copies of Blue Cat just because of that do not die ability. Moving on, we also have 3 copies of the Lunalight Tiger. Now, I think this card is really strong, simply because it's a pendulum scale, so it cannot be effect veilered or whatever weird hand trap you might run into. And simply, whenever it's in your pendulum scale, you can target any Lunalight monster in your grave and special summon it, but its effects are negated and it's destroyed at the end of the turn. Now, again, very similarly to White Rabbit, this can help you get into your bigger fusion plays because it can summon any Lunalight monster, but also a really cool interaction with this card in the pendulum scale is if you have any Blue Cat in the graveyard, you can special summon it off of Tiger's effect, and even if Blue Cat's effect is negated on the field, when it's destroyed at the end phase because of Tiger's effect, it actually triggers Blue Cat, which essentially can let you search any other Lunalight from your deck and special summon it to the field, which is really cool in my opinion. So of course we have 3 copies of Tiger, and her monster effect is also pretty darn relevant because it's worded exactly like Performance Plush Fire, where if Tiger is destroyed in any way, shape, or form, either as a scale or on your field, you can special summon any Lunalight Tiger from your grave, which usually is 99% of the time also going to be Lunalight Blue Cat. So yeah, we have 3 copies of the Lunalight Tiger. Then we have 1 copy of Lunalight Purple Butterfly, and then the 1 copy of the Lunalight Wolf. Now, I absolutely hated multiple copies of both of these cards because very similarly to Blue Cat, both of these cards really don't help you propel your game state by themselves, and in my opinion, they just really don't contribute as much to the deck as do the other Lunalight monsters. There's very niche situations that I found where these cards are good, and in those niche situations they are very strong, but outside of those niche situations, I just found these cards to be extremely cloggy at multiples, so that's why I decided to cut down each of them to one apiece. Now, there is relevant times when you want to search purple butterfly, excuse me if I can speak, simply because it's a tanky searchable kind of pseudo honest, which is pretty cool. And then the wolf is like the miracle fusion of the deck. Now, as to why I only run one of this, also, so specifically, it's a miracle fusion. It helps you OTK quicker, but I found that drawing multiples of these just makes you kind of just lose, as well as it just in general, the OTK version of Lunalights is so inconsistent and runs just so many bad cards that I felt running multiples of this to kind of halfway do an OTK build or a more control build was just really unnecessary and just made the hands a lot more awkward. So that is why I decided to only run one copy of Lunalight Wolf. Moving on, I actually have a pretty darn cool engine in this deck to try and help it work a little bit smoother. We have one copy of Armageddon Knight, one copy of Elemental Hero Blazeman, and then two copies of Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. So this hero engine is here attempting to solve the biggest problem of Lunalights, where that their monsters suck. Like the big monsters that you have in your extra deck, in the big fusion monsters, they're either extremely hard to summon consistently or they're just bad. And because of that, the deck really just kind of fell off, because even if your plays work, like they're obviously pretty synergistic. The plays, you can kind of see the plays and how they work, but the thing is, the resulting boards from these combo plays just do not produce very good monsters. Either you make one copy of this, which is pretty terrible, or you end up having to pass your turn because you're not able to just immediately make a Panther Dancer or the Leo Dancer. So because of that, I decided to try and add these hero cards in here, specifically because it gives you access to Dark Law, and Dark Law turn 1 is pretty darn cool. So I felt like it just kind of contributes as an engine because it helps you facilitate your polymerization plays, as well as, again, it just gives you better monster quality, which I felt like is this deck's biggest weakness, which is, again, in terms of just having kind of bad monsters. Now, although it's not a hero, I also wanted to mention really fast that I have the Armageddon in here because it helps you dump Blue Cat to the grave, so that it can help you set up your Lunalight Tiger and your Lunalight White Rabbit plays a little bit easier. So we have the one copy of Armageddon Knight to round off that little warrior engine. And then finally, for the last monsters, we have 3 copies of Maxi because this card is pretty broken nowadays. So we have 3 copies of Maxi to round off the monster lineup. Moving on to the spells, we have 3 copies of Poly because this is a fusion deck that only uses polymerization rather than its own archetype specific fusion. So we have 3 copies of Poly because we need it. We have 3 copies of Fusion Recovery. Now, this card is terrible if you draw multiples of it turn 1, but I felt like just because it's a straight +1 for you, it's kind of like preparation of rights in a sense for fusions. I felt like 3 was pretty necessary because although, again, you can dead draw it every so often, I felt like the +1 is just so important in this deck because a lot of the plays end up negging you 1 at minimum, that just having a card that can just get you free +1s is just really good. So I decided to throw the 3 copies of Fusion Recovery in here. Then we have the 3 copies of Tenki because all the Lunalights are Beast Warriors and you can search every single one except the Wolf with this. So we have 3 copies of Tenki. Then we have 3 copies of A Hero Lives because of the hero engine, and it helps you get Dark Law turn 1, which again is really, really strong. And it just helps you go first, and it lets you have better monster quality, again, like I said. And then to accompany that, we have the 1 copy of Mask Change and the actual 1 copy of Mask Change 2. This is here because, like I said with Armageddon Knight, you want to try and set up that Blue Cat ASAP so that you can start actually just rolling advantage with your deck and how they work together. So in the situations that you do draw Blue Cat, this is a pretty good card to search off of Shadow Mist rather than regular Mask Change, because this does have that discard effect. It helps you discard the Blue Cat from your hand, and to also hopefully maybe even turn a Lunalight on your field into a Dark Law as well. So again, that is going to round us off from that hero engine. Then for the generic spells, we have 1 copy of Rhoda because this is Armageddon and Blazeman. We have 1 copy of Instant Fusion because we are running the heroes and the Blue Cat, we can use Norden to a little bit of sort of value in this deck. So I did decide to throw in the 1 instant. Then we have 1 copy of Upstart Goblin to round off the spells. Finally, for the traps, we have 3. We have 1 copy of Lunalight Reincarnation Dance. This card is pretty good, especially if your Lunalight Blue Cat gets destroyed and you can chain this to it. But I just did not like multiples because this is a trap, so it's slow. And just, yeah, basically, if it was a spell, this card would be busted. But it's a trap, sadly, so it is going to be naturally slow. So that is why I only decided to run 1 copy of it. And then finally, for the last trap, we have 2 copies of Call of the Haunted to help us abuse our hero engine a little bit more, as well as to get us another way to get more Lunalights from our grave back onto our field. So we have those 2 cards to round off our 40-card main deck. Okay, moving on to the extra deck, which is, it's gonna get a little bit different. Like, if you guys watched other Lunalight deck profiles, this is not gonna be similar to almost any of them. So, just a heads up, basically. We have 2 copies of Lunalight Cat Dancer. I just never went into 3. I tested this deck for a long time. I've never, ever, ever gone into 3 Cat Dancer. I just feel like the 3rd copy is a waste of space. You'll never go into it because this card is what my biggest problem with this deck is that the easiest to make Lunalight is absolute garbage. This card is, like, I could go on probably a 10-minute rant as to why I just hate this card, but you have to play it because you need to get into your bigger fusions, and in order to get into your just big plays in general, and you just need the Cat Dancer. So we have 2 copies of Cat Dancer, even though I absolutely just think the card is trash. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Panther Dancer, which is probably the better one, obviously. Like, you have 2 copies of this card in here because as soon as you make Cat Dancer, you will be wanting to try and turn it into a Panther Dancer ASAP, because Cat Dancer sucks, and this card is pretty much just a lot better than Cat Dancer. It's bigger, it has a better effect, it has a better immunity, and its effect isn't as obviously able to just ruin your day, simply because, like, what I mean by that is that this card, whenever it attacks, it burns your opponent for 100 life points. Otherwise, it would just straight up be safe from Solemn Strike. But because it has to do this stupid 100 damage every time this card attacks, it can get Solemn Striked from it. And I just hate this card. Like, I should actually just title this video, How Much QRM Hates Lunalight Cat Dancer. But that's not the point. We have 2 copies of Panther Dancer because you just want to upgrade your Cat Dancers into this ASAP, and it's pretty good. So yeah, we have 2 copies of Panther Dancer, and then finally the 1 copy of Leo Dancer, because I feel multiples you'll never ever go into. Like, I've seen Lunalight deck profiles where they run 3 Leo Dancer, and I just think that's obnoxious because you'll never ever make 3. And in my opinion, if you can make 1 Leo Dancer in the appropriate time where you can make it, you should be able to win the game right there, because by itself, she can just do 6,600 damage, again, by herself. Maybe not 66, I'm not doing math correctly. I mean 7,000 damage by herself, which is really, really good. So we have the 1 copy of Lunalight Dancer or Lunalight Leo Dancer in here to act as our big finishing card. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Master Hero Dark Law because, you know, Dark Law, he's the dank law of the dank memes. And yeah, we have the hero engine for a reason, so we have the 2 copies of Dark Law. Then for the last fusion, we have 1 copy of Elder Entity Norden because we have that 1 copy of Instant Fusion. So that'll be it for all the fusions. Moving on to the XZs, we have 1 copy of Castell, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, 1 copy of Diamond Dyer. We have the 2 Utopias because punching over Dark Destroyer is pretty cool. And then for the rank 2s, we have 1 copy of Dagostal Phoenix for quick OTKs. And we have the 1 copy of Herald of the Pure Light because being able to abuse your graveyard just that much more can just really help you set up your plays exactly how you want them. So yeah, that'll be it for this Lunalight deck profile. I understand that I was pretty lenient and lackadaisical with how I've been talking about this deck. I will be hopefully bringing you guys a few more deck profiles very soon. It just kind of depends on how fast I can get the cards. But I'm also hoping to try and just kind of just be a little bit more real with you guys in my deck profiles. Try to sound maybe a little bit less professional and a little bit more relatable, if that makes sense. So hopefully you guys like this kind of newer way of me doing the deck profiles. So with that, I hope you guys all very much did enjoy this video, and as always, this is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.